In the darkest corners of Japanese folklore, this entity does not hunt its prey the way traditional predators do. It does not stalk, it does not chase, and it leaves absolutely no trace behind. This phenomenon is recorded in medieval literature under a highly specific, terrifying term, Onihitokuchi, which translates to being devoured in a single mouthful. Entire families, travelers, and isolated villagers would simply vanish from the face of the earth in an instant, erased so completely that the only logical explanation was a monster from another world slipping into ours to claim them. But that wasn't the strangest part. The true horror lies in a detail hidden within a 10th century dictionary, a detail that shifts our entire understanding of what this creature actually is. The monster responsible for these disappearances was not originally a towering giant with a club. In fact, it had no physical body at all. It was an invisible, malicious force, and the exact method of how it eventually gained flesh and bone introduces a mystery that historians are still trying to unravel today. We are going to explore a legend so pervasive and terrifying that entire capital cities were architecturally designed to defend against it. But to understand what this entity became, we first have to look at what it was trying to hide. Long before the modern image of horned giants permeated popular culture, the original concept of the Oni was far more insidious. According to the Wamyu Ruiju, the first Japanese language dictionary compiled in the 930, the word Oni is actually a linguistic corruption of the character On or Onu, which simply means to hide. The text explicitly defines the creature as a hidden entity that does not wish to reveal its true form, operating as an invisible spirit or a soul of the dead that brings disease and disaster. These formless beings were the unseen architects of misery. If a plague swept through a town, it was the work of an Oni. If a sudden madness gripped a family, it was a possession by this unseen force. In the ancient chronicle Nihon Shoki, completed in the year 720, there is a chilling account of a mysterious, invisible Oni wearing a woven hat, standing silently at the top of Mount Asakura to watch the funeral procession of Emperor Saimei. It did not attack, it merely observed, an omen of lingering death. For centuries, this entity remained a shapeless phantom, a bump in the night that defied physical description. Yet one detail doesn't fit. If this entity was completely formless, how did it eventually gain the terrifying, highly specific physical body we recognize today? A hulking brute with the horns of a beast, wearing the pelt of a predator. The answer does not come from biology or myth, but from a map. To give the Formless Dread a physical shape, ancient Japan turned to onmyo, a complex system of esoteric cosmology and divination based on the Chinese philosophy of yin and yang. The practitioners of this magic, known as onmyoji, mapped out the forces of the universe across the physical landscape. They determined that the northeast direction was the absolute most dangerous vector of the compass. They called this direction the Kimon, which literally translates to the demon gate. It was believed that the Kimon was a cosmic tier, the exact spatial coordinates through which all evil spirits, plagues, and calamities entered the human world. But here is where the story takes a turn. In the ancient Chinese zodiac system, the northeast direction was known as Ushitora, which translates to the ox-tiger direction. The horrifying physical appearance of the Oni that we know today is not a random collection of monstrous traits. It is a literal, visual manifestation of the demon gate. The creature was given the sharp horns of the ox, and it was clothed in the stripped pelt of a tiger. The tiger is considered the absolute king of beasts in Asian traditions, and the fact that an Oni uses its skin as a mere loincloth is a deliberate psychological tactic to demonstrate the demon's overwhelming, insurmountable power. This geographical terror was taken so seriously that it dictated national infrastructure. When the ancient capital of Heian-ko, modern-day Kyoto, was built, massive temple complexes were deliberately constructed to the northeast to seal the demon gate and protect the emperor. Even the walls of the imperial palace itself were designed, with deliberately cut corners on the northeast side, to ward off the invisible invasion, but mapping a demon doesn't explain where it gets its soul. The entity was given a face by the zodiac, but its malicious spirit had to come from somewhere. To find out what fuels these creatures, we have to look away from the stars and stare directly into the abyss. With the arrival of Buddhism in Japan during the 6th century, the concept of the Oni underwent a massive and terrifying evolution. They were no longer just invisible spirits of disease or mathematical anomalies on a compass. They became the official wardens and executioners of Jigoku, the Buddhist Hell. According to the Jigoku Soshi, the gruesome hell scrolls of the 12th century, Oni serve as the eternal foot soldiers of King Enma, the magistrate of the underworld. Their daily existence is dedicated to the systematic torture of human souls. They are depicted boiling sinners alive in massive iron cauldrons, forcing the condemned to climb towering mountains made of razor, sharp needles barefoot, and using their trademark iron clubs, the kanabo, to repeatedly crush human bones into dust. However, the legend becomes much darker when you realize where these wardens come from. In this cosmology, Oni are not a separate species of monster. They are us, a wicked soul, beyond all hope of rehabilitation, physically mutates into an Oni after descending into the underworld, and their physical appearance is a direct reflection of their human failings. The color of an Oni's skin is not random. It is deeply tied to the Buddhist concept of kleshas, or earthly passions that prevent enlightenment. A red Oni represents a human soul consumed by unyielding greed and lust. A blue or green Oni is the manifestation of deep-seated hatred and malice. Black represents absolute ignorance, while yellow and white denote stubbornness and arrogance. That should have been the end of the story, a grim warning about the afterlife. But a terrifying contradiction exists in the folklore. While most human souls had to die to undergo this demonic mutation, a select few did not wait that long. When a living human is so thoroughly consumed by negative emotion that their soul rots inside their living body, the transformation can happen here, in the mortal world, and historically, this violent metamorphosis was almost exclusively projected onto women. Known as Kijo or Onibaba, these female demons are fundamentally different from their male counterparts. They do not come from the underworld, and they do not serve as wardens of hell. Instead, they are lone predators, driven into the mountains and forests by the agonizing isolation of human society, transforming into flesh-eating monsters fueled by vengeance, resentment, and unbearable jealousy. The truly unsettling part comes later when you look at how Japanese traditional theater codified this transformation. In the classical No theater, the psychological collapse of a woman into a demon is perfectly captured by the iconic Hannya mask. The word Hannya actually comes from the Sanskrit term prajna, meaning the highest form of Buddhist wisdom. This bizarre juxtaposition of supreme wisdom and ultimate evil comes from the famous play Aoi no Yue, where a mystic exorcises a jealous spirit. As the demon is driven away, it screams in agony, "Oh, how horrible! The voice of wisdom is like a demon!" The theater breaks this living nightmare into 3 distinct, irreversible stages of mutation. The first stage is the Naminari. At this point, the woman still looks mostly human, though small horns have begun to pierce through her scalp. She is losing her mind to jealousy, utilizing dark magic to summon living ghosts, or Ikiryo, to attack her rivals. She is suffering, but she can still be saved. If her rage grows, she becomes a Chunari. Her horns grow long and sharp, her teeth elongate into tusks, and her face contorts into a terrifying, metallic stare. Her magic is devastating, yet she remains vulnerable to Buddhist prayers. But if the darkness consumes her entirely, she reaches the point of no return, the Onnari. She is no longer human in any capacity. Her body mutates into a serpentine dragon, her mouth breathes literal fire, and she is forever trapped inside a demonic shell with absolutely no hope of salvation. The genius of the Hannya mask is its terrifying duality. If an actor looks straight at the audience, the mask is a snarling, wrathful devil. But if they tilt their head slightly downward, the shadows shift, and the face appears to be weeping in uncontrollable, melancholic agony. It is a monster, yes, but it is a monster born of a broken heart. These stories of living women turning into demons seem like supernatural manifestations of personal trauma. Yet, one detail doesn't fit the supernatural narrative at all. What if the monsters of these legends were never supernatural to begin with? This is the point where the folklore cracks open to reveal a deeply disturbing historical reality. Modern researchers, including literary critic Baba Akiko, have uncovered a chilling pattern in how the term Oni was used in ancient and medieval Japan. The term was frequently weaponized by the imperial court and the ruling elite to classify and exterminate the other. Anyone who existed outside the rigid boundaries of the emperor's control, foreigners, indigenous tribes, political rebels, wandering ascetics, and the extreme poor, were officially labeled as Oni. When the ancient Nihon Shoki Chronicle describes the Yamato army fighting demons from the north, known as the Mishihase, they were not fighting supernatural monsters. They were fighting indigenous human beings. The text even describes a wordless exchange, or daemon market, which was simply a tense trade negotiation between two human cultures that did not share a language. By labeling their political enemies as literal demons, the government successfully dehumanized them. It became completely acceptable to slaughter rebels because you weren't killing people, you were exterminating monsters. This real-world terror also explains the terrifying concept we started with, Onihitokuchi, the demon that eats a human in a single bite without a trace. During the Heian period, ordinary people lacked the scientific knowledge to explain sudden, catastrophic landslides, flash floods, or famines. Furthermore, they could not openly speak about the secret police or the brutal political purges executed by the aristocracy. When a family was buried alive in a mudslide, or dragged away in the night by the government, the traumatized survivors rationalized the sudden, inexplicable absence by blaming a monster. The Oni became the ultimate scapegoat for both natural disasters and state-sponsored violence. One of the most famous legends in Japanese history is the tale of Shuten-doji, an unstoppable demon king who operated out of a mountain fortress, kidnapping and eating the daughters of Kyoto's nobility. The imperial court was powerless, and the monster was only defeated by a rising class of military warriors, led by the samurai Minamoto no Yorimitsu. While celebrated as a heroic myth, this story was heavily promoted to legitimize the violent rise of the samurai class, proving they could protect the capital from demons when the aristocratic politicians could not. Even if we can explain away the humanoid demons as political scapegoats, there is an entirely different category of these creatures that defies all rational explanation. Moving away from the capital and heading toward the dark, churning waters of Western Japan, the folklore shifts into something much more bizarre. Here, the Oni are not humanoid giants or disgruntled exiles. They are chimeric abominations. The most feared of these is the Ushi-oni, or the ox daimon. This creature is traditionally described as having the massive horned head of a furious ox attached to the bulbous, multi-legged body of a giant spider or centipede. Lurking in shallow waters and coastal caves, it waits in silence to ambush fishermen, dragging them into the depths. The Ushi-oni does not care about politics, karma, or jealousy. It is the raw, untamed embodiment of the chaotic ocean and the perils of nature. In Mie Prefecture, local records detail the story of Lord Aisu Shigaki, a samurai who encountered an Ushi-oni sunbathing on a mountain near his castle. He reportedly shot the abomination dead with a single arrow, causing the river below to run completely red with the monster's blood. And the bizarre entities don't stop at the water's edge. They infiltrate the home. According to esoteric traditions, even inanimate objects, can become a type of demonic spirit. The tsukumogami are household tools, musical instruments, and utensils that, upon reaching 100 years of age, gain a soul. If they are carelessly thrown away during spring cleaning, they mutate into vengeful specters. Ancient scrolls depict these abandoned tools growing limbs and fangs, kidnapping the humans who discarded them, and celebrating their gruesome revenge with copious amounts of alcohol. The underlying message is clear. Disrespecting your environment, whether it's the violent ocean or the tools in your own kitchen, will literally breed monsters. And to survive in a world constantly generating new demons, humanity had to fight back. To protect themselves from these chaotic forces, the people of Japan developed defenses, rituals that are still practiced right now, in the 21st century. The most famous of these is the festival of Setsubun, held every year in early February to mark the transition from winter to spring. Today, it is a joyous occasion where children throw roasted soybeans at adults wearing plastic oni masks, chanting the famous phrase, "Oni wa soto, fuku wa uchi," demons out, fortune in. But this light-hearted family event hides a deeply serious and ancient origin. Setsubun evolved from a solemn 8th century imperial court ritual known as tsuina. On the darkest night of the year, a specialized exorcist known as the Hososhi, wearing a terrifying four-eyed golden mask, would march through the palace grounds armed with a peach, wood bow, and reed arrows. His job was not symbolic. He was there to violently, physically drive the invisible demons of disease and misfortune out of the emperor's home. Over the centuries, the deadly arrows were replaced by roasted soybeans. According to a 10th century legend, a monk on Mount Kurama successfully survived an attack by a bloodthirsty oni simply by hurling a handful of roasted beans directly into its eyes, blinding it and forcing it to flee. The soybean, carrying immense vital energy, became the ultimate weapon against the underworld. Yet, there is one highly specific group of people in Japan who do not need to throw beans at all. Descendants of the legendary samurai Watanabe no Tsuna, the man who helped slaughter the demon king Shuten-doji, are allegedly exempt from the ritual. According to the myth, the surviving oni were so traumatized by what Watanabe did to their king that to this day, they refuse to approach any house bearing the Watanabe family name. The ritual of throwing beans assumes that the demon is outside, standing in the cold, trying to get in. But as the ancient dictionary Wamyu stated over 1,000 years ago, the true meaning of the word oni is to hide. And as the Buddhist Hell scrolls warn us, these creatures are not alien invaders. They are forged from our own hatred, our own greed, and our own jealousy. The Wamyu was right. The creature is hiding. But it isn't hiding in the deep mountains. And it isn't waiting at the demon gate. The most chilling implication of the Oni legend isn't that a monster might break down your door in the middle of the night. It's the realization that the monster is already inside, hiding behind a human face, just waiting for the right moment to finally show its horns.